We'll go ahead and get started here. First off, thank you all for joining us today at our monthly meeting. Today we're going to be covering safe trips in a connected transportation network. This is part of the USDOT's Complete Trip ITS4US program. Wanted to give a quick thank you to today's speakers, Kofi Wakhisi, Roell, both with ARC, Danny Tongson with Gwinnett County, and Natalie Smusz-Mengelkoch with ICF. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to help educate us on this program. Thank you to Q-Free for sponsoring today's meeting. I'll give Mike Clance a minute to speak up here on their behalf. But first, a quick ITS Georgia update. Today's meeting marks the end of our 2022 backpack donation campaign. ITS Georgia has purchased and will be donating 1,000 backpacks to the Boys and Girls Club of Atlanta. We'll be sticking around after the meeting to pack up the bags and enjoy some of the great selection of craft beverages that Monday Night Brewing has to offer. If you didn't sign up for this activity but would like to stick around, we'd love to have you. Nominations for the 2023-2024 ITS Georgia Board of Directors remain open through the end of the month. If there is someone you'd like to nominate to serve on the board, please reach out to Winter Horrible or myself at president@itsga.org with their information. We'll be announcing our newly elected officials and celebrating the Best of ITS Georgia Awards this October at Maggiano's. Award nominations will be opening soon, so start thinking about projects you and your partners are involved with and working on to nominate and be recognized for. A quick program committee update. Our July meeting will be hosted at Utilicom's office and will focus on communication training. This will be a great opportunity for your technicians and engineers to engage in a well-rounding training program with some of the brightest in the state. Seating for this event is going to be limited, so keep an eye out for emails and some more information to follow. Finally, for me, we're less than 20 weeks away from the Southeastern ITS Summit, which will host 5 ITS chapters at the Hyatt Regency in Atlanta. Sponsorships for this event are open, so be sure to visit the website, seitssummit.com, to check out pricing and benefits. Exhibitor booths should be opening up shortly, and registration should be open within the month. So keep your eyes out for more information to follow. And hotel registration for this event is open. If you need any more information, please reach out to me or Mike Holt. I'm going to give Christy John a moment to speak on behalf of ITE.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Christy John with Atkins, and I'm here to talk to you more about ITE Summer Seminar. ITE Summer Seminar is happening in St. Simon's next month. It starts on 17th of July for 3-4 days. And I know many of you have been there or heard about the conference, but if you have any questions, it's not too late to join us in person or virtually. If you want to sponsor or if you want an exhibit table, just let me know. Again, my name is Christy John, and you can go to Georgia ITE website and you can find all the information. But I brought some of the handouts on the table. So let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. And then hand it over to Billy with KSU, who also has a quick update.
Good afternoon. We're doing a study at KSU to understand what do undergraduate engineering students need to be successful in ITS. If you see this floating around, please take the survey before you leave here. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. And finally, I'll pass it off to Mike Clance with Q-Free for a quick update on what they got going on.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Good afternoon. Let me just say that Q-Free is happy and honored to be able to sponsor this meeting. I think most of you probably know of Q-Free. We used to be Intelight, now Q-Free. We continue to provide traffic signal controller, hardware, software, central system. Some of the exciting things we've got going on, we've just released a new version of our MaxTime CV product, which is being used in Gwinnett County Smart Corridor project with 360 NS. We're really excited about some of the advancements in that product and the applications it's going to allow us to do. We're continuing to advance our central systems with our new kinetic signals. So we're really just trying to drive the industry forward with technological innovations. The other thing I want to announce is we've added another person to our Atlanta office here, Lucas Ferreira, who could not be here today. We've sent him out to Denver to do some work for us, but he's local here. You'll see his face more frequently as he gets more involved in these. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about Q3, feel free to come see me or to shoot me an email. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your support. And I'll hand it straight to Natalie, Kofi, Maria.
We're all just going to stand up here.
Very good.
Yep, we got a musical performance we're going to do.
Oh, you want me to click you?
Don't ask me to dance.
What's this?
It's a microphone.
Oh.
So I don't need this?
It's very fancy.
I prefer to hold them.
Hello, hello, hello,
Thank you.
hello. We need them both. Okay.
Oh,
Hey.
one's a recording. That's a recording.
Where's
Where's the slide? There. Oh.
Oh, hey everybody, sorry for the pause. We had to shuffle our speakers today. So first we'll just introduce ourselves and then we'll get started with the presentation. My name is Kofi Wakhisi. I work at the Atlanta Regional Commission in the Transportation Planning Group.
Hi, I'm Roell. I also work at the ARC of Kofi.
I'm Natalie Smusz-Mengelkoch with ICF.
And I'm Danny Tongson. I'm with the Gwinnett IT Project Manager.
All right, so we're here today to talk to you about a very interesting and I would say very novel project. I'm going to tell you right now before you see all the slides, just so you can kind of get familiar with what it is we're explaining to you and what this project is all about. It essentially is a trip planning or trip planner application, a mobile application that is designed specifically for users that are often overlooked in the design process, in the infrastructure planning process. And so you'll get a feel for, if you're not already familiar with this project, you'll understand why this is so important to the region. But first, I want to give USDOT, anyone from USDOT in the room? Of course not, just kidding. I don't think they're ITS Georgia members.
He's not here today. Oh, what he is in the yeah.
Oh yeah, Greg Morris is, props to him. He's been following this project very closely at the Georgia division. But I want to introduce you to this overall program that the ITSGA had announced almost 2 years ago in 2020. It was a program that folks could apply for. It was a competitive discretionary grant program, just like many others, that was called the Complete Trip ITS4US Deployment Program. There were 5 sites selected, but here on the slide you can see sort of like the principles and goals of the overall program. Essentially, it's all about developing technology to enable end users to navigate and take their trips in a more accessible fashion. So these are people who are often overlooked, and there's different what we call classes of underserved populations. So it could be racial, low income, persons or people with disabilities, veterans, and in a lot of cases, there's a lot of people check more than one box. So there's a caption here. They want to innovate technology to help improve accessibility for folks that often cannot make the certain trips. And a lot of these trips are critical trips, like medical trips, or access to jobs, or access to food, healthy food. So here are the program goals. I'm not going to read those. But you'll see how the technology that we're working on And our concept is going to achieve each of these goals. Okay, so here's the administrative part of this program. It's a really unique way that USDOT set this up, because traditionally you would apply for, a sponsor would apply for federal funds through a discretionary program. And you get your funding for preliminary engineering, right-of-way, and construction. But since this is a technology project, and technically or officially this is considered a cooperative research program, so even though we're talking about deployment, and even though we're talking about software design and everything like that, it's still a research project in the eyes of ITSGA. The reason being is because this stuff that we're working on across the country among the 5 sites, Gwinnett County being one of the 5, is so innovative that it's not proven. It's not, some of the components of the technology and the concept are proven, but in general, this is new stuff. There's no playbook, so there's a pretty heavy systems engineering component involved, and that all happened in phase 1. Concept development, various other tasks, performance management plan, outreach plan. There are 15 deliverables that our team had to crank out in a matter of 12 months. So we'll go over what that looked like over the phase 1. We are now in phase 2. That was just announced a couple weeks ago. So we all 4 of the, round of applause to these folks, not me. Props to Dr. Randy Ginsler way over there, helping us get to this point. So getting back to the administrative, because some of you guys may end up working on this type of stuff in the future in terms of dealing with USDOT in this particular way with this type of grant. I don't know if there are any other programs that ITSGA offers this way, but we could not advance into phase 2 until we were approved by the ITSGA to do so. And that means submitting all of our deliverables, getting all those approved, and demonstrating a viable concept. We haven't tested anything yet. We haven't deployed anything yet. It's all just paperwork. Phase 2 is where we do the design and testing. And so we were, like I said, we advanced to that. And that's a two-year and 2-minute discussion, because I'm getting the word to wrap up. And then phase 3 is another 18 months. So we've got another 3.5 years left with this project after already working on it for 1 year. Oops. Okay, these are the other 5 sites. One of these sites didn't make it. I won't mention them, but 4, you can go look up which one didn't make it into phase 2. Here is our phase 2/3 project team. Some of these members weren't on phase 1, but after further deliberation and concept development, it made sense to include them because of the nature of what Gwinnett County is doing and what GDOT's doing with connected vehicle deployment, and also with transit operations. So we have GDOT is the lead agency now in phase 2. ARC relinquished that role. We were lead in phase 1, but we don't have enough deep pockets to cash roll this thing. So that's why GDOT is now the lead. Okay. You can stew on this for a minute to see all the different roles of the partners that we have on our team. Many of you are here today.
Yeah, if you're on or participating in phase 1 or going to participate in phase 2 or 3, raise your hand.
Yeah, raise your hand if you're here and one of these partners. Props to you guys, thank you. And if you want to say a few words, if there's time, feel free. Okay, concept development. Now, I mentioned the overall goals of the USDOT program. Similarly, those pass down to each of the 5 sites, but we are focusing on specifically people with disabilities. We want to help improve mobility and accessibility for folks that are in wheelchairs or have some other disability that prevents them from having the freedom and independence that we all enjoy when we decide to, at a whim, go take a walk to the grocery store or go catch a train or take a bus. Many people have difficulties with that. And the premise of the concept that we're developing is that the technology is there so long as we can support it with enough data, real-time archive and real-time data, to enable this technology to empower people with disabilities to make these trips more often. Additionally, we're focusing on older adults, folks who have limited English proficiency, which when you see the study area, you'll know why that is one of our goals. And then, like I said, low-income populations. Here are our goals, very straightforward, right? Like nothing that's, that diverges or contradicts what the ITS JPO program goals are. Okay, so my favorite slide, because I explain this thing every time. I'm gonna take a crack at it now because this, I told you at the beginning, this is a trip planning application. You could access it by computer, by your mobile device, and if not, by a call center, if you don't have the other two. So imagine Wendy, hypothetical person, and she is a wheelchair user, and she would like to make a trip. She turns on her app, if she has a device, a mobile device, she turns on her application, she's registered as a user, she has an account, and she wants to plan her trip in her wheelchair using transit. Maybe she's gonna take a medical trip. Now, what's the technology that we're thinking about that's gonna help enable that and make that a safer, more efficient, accessible trip? Well, first of all, the app is gonna give her turn-by-turn directions on which route to take to get to the bus stop. Now, the turn-by-turn directions are based on pre-existing data that dictate, based on a wheelchair user, that gives her the most optimal route to take. It could be something relative to topography. It could also be something relative to, that responds to what the existing sidewalk conditions are, primarily. Any other factors I'm leaving out? Those are the main factors. And we're gonna explain the technology and the sources of the data if we have time, if I can get through this real quick. But essentially that's the application. Now, once she gets to the transit stop, she's also gonna be able to enjoy a quicker transit time because of the connected vehicle deployment, connected vehicle technology that's getting deployed in the study area. And that's through the transit signal priority concept. So then once she gets on the bus, oh, by the way, the bus may notify, the bus driver is going to be notified that there's a future passenger that's getting ready to board. And maybe that bus driver knows to dwell a little bit longer because they know they're waiting on a user who is disabled, has disability. And so that, I think, is a way to normalize and create a little bit more equity in our overall transportation system. So that's another feature of this concept. Now, I mentioned TSP, so she's traveling, she gets to her before she gets to her destination, either before she gets on the bus or after she alights the bus, she's gonna have some additional technology to help her traverse the intersection safer, either through connected vehicle technology, which will have infrastructure communication between her, the mobile device, and her real-time location, and either the traffic signal or connected vehicles. And you'll learn a little bit more about that. And then also, RSU broadcasts, I mentioned that just now in terms of connected vehicles, being aware that Wendy might be in an intersection, and drivers would have real-time awareness that there's a really vulnerable road user in the intersection. And then she'll have outdoor-indoor navigation when she gets to her destination. For example, which entrance, like we all came here today and we found like probably 3 different ways or 4 to get into this, access this building. Well, Wendy may need to know that she needs to come up the ramp, and based on our indoor-outdoor navigation, she'll know that. and know which path to take as she's accessing the building or leaving the building. Okay, so here's a study area. Yes. Oh, switching it to Danny. Danny's going to explain the study area because he's from Gwinnett County.
I know a little bit about it.
I can advance if you want.
The study area covers probably around 90 square miles. There's going to be at least 280,000 folks within this area. One of the reasons why Gwinnett County was picked was because of diversity, which is obviously a big deal. Also, along with that is the underserved community, which this project is looking to serve. We also have ongoing connected vehicle projects and as well as diversified land use. So this is key things here. If we go into, the other way, some stats here. Our signalized intersections, we have around 356 centrally controlled signals. RSUs in their intersections are 215. Along those transit routes, there's 209 of those. RSUs are equipped on, along those transit routes, around 132. As far as just GCT vehicles and routes, what we plan, and this is all part of phase 2, is that we're going to have 7 routes, 38 vehicles on those transit vehicles installed with OBUs and connection protection. Finally, in our last slide, we had the major hubs that this will be focused on, and this is what you'll see here. And then the sidewalk, which is a big part of it with the sim walk, there's 2,000 linear miles. And here's all the 5 initiatives, programs going on. It's the ATL ride, rider information data evaluation, connected vehicle, the sidewalk inventory, the connected vehicle master plan, and the space-time memory platform. And I had to make sure that I had special shout out to Georgia Tech, to Gwinnett County, and ARC. So thank you very much.
Wait. Oh, it's you. Okay.
Oh, thanks.
So There's a lot of different pieces and parts here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk through the technical approach briefly, and essentially try to communicate how we intend to provide the application that Kofi went through. So how are we going to address the needs? And so to first understand those needs, we had extensive stakeholder involvement that occurred during phase 1. And what you see here is a summary of those needs that were identified, really organized by that Wendy diagram. And those steps helped us develop and kind of a comprehensive list of needs, and then you'll see those led into the system requirements and so forth within the technical components as well. And so in the pre-trip planning phase, I won't read all of these, you're welcome to follow along, but wanting to understand and develop a system that accommodates personalized characteristics, needs, and preferences, we found was critical. That was probably the most stated need of all, and the ability to customize how they receive that information out of the app that is specific to them. And so whether that's a specialized notification or alert that instead of coming through audio, it's haptic and so forth, that's what we're really referencing there. Within the begin trip stage, you can see there's a need to support services during trip planning based on their preferences. So this may be needing access to a call center perhaps, or needing access to a particular caregiver. And so we're building that within this system as well. And then transition to transit, the ability to communicate with the transit infrastructure, including the operator, so that, as Kofi alluded to earlier, if you can think about the transit stops, how many of those are actually not accessible for a vast amount of people out there. And so you'll see that because people can't access them appropriately, they are very unsafe because they don't have other options, and sometimes people will be in the road and so forth. And so what this application will allow them to do is be in a safe location and alert the operator of their presence so they can follow along on their trip. And so within the intersection crossing stage, we identified the ability to access the push buttons without physically pushing them. The connected vehicle broadcast message, the ability to alert connected vehicles that Kofi mentioned, indoor, outdoor navigation, to have understanding of where accessible entrances are, if elevators are out, and so forth, those types of things. And then within the reporting, the ability to provide feedback based on their routing, real-time conditions. And so this is the system context diagram that we developed for the ConOps during phase 1. Shout out, Tom. And I'll walk you through it here. I don't know, I won't go too in depth, but essentially, you can think through, based on Kofi's descriptions of Wendy's trip and how the application will support her, the various systems that Danny mentioned. You can see the sidewalk sim or the inventory collection tools. This is something that Georgia Tech is going to lead at the beginning of phase 2. Some of you may have participated in this program before. It's the essentially enhanced data collection using machine learning and collection tools that have been developed for this purpose. And so that data set will be available and ingested by the STM platform. And that STM platform space-time memory is essentially a data engine that Georgia Tech has developed. And as part of this project, we will be developing algorithms essentially to calculate the impedances based on a unique user profile. So essentially assigning costs, if you will, not financial costs, but impedance cost to various links throughout the network based on what their unique profile is. And so that STM platform will communicate with the ATL Rides application. That ATL Rides application is being developed by the ATL under an IMI grant. And so this project will provide enhancements to that application itself and additional integration elements. And so the STM platform is one of those elements that we can then apply those impedance values. And that ATL Rides application will also ingest connected vehicle data that we mentioned, and this is the way to also be able to communicate directly with the end user. And so Danny mentioned the connection protection, and so that's actually an existing module. It's, you can think of it as connected vehicle because it is that, but it is not in the traditional sense of OBUs and RSUs that we have grown accustomed to thinking about. But in that way, there'll be an opportunity to communicate from the transit vehicle to the end user. And then, I think I hit them all. So, the one last one over here, the building system. So that's the indoor navigation. We've identified 2 buildings that will be outfitted with essentially Wi-Fi beacons to be able to communicate to the end user within the building itself, and we'll be providing indoor navigation for those. And so how are we going to develop this? So we are likely pretty familiar with the systems engineering process. It's been what's traditionally been used to support ITS development and deployment for a number of years, whether we formally use it or formally don't, but in this, right, oh, right, that's good. So, good call. So essentially, and we went through a very extensive systems engineering process during phase one. And that has helped us have and gain a better understanding of what actually needs to be done, what's possible to do, what integration elements and so forth. So the further development can be done efficiently. Now we're going to actually use an agile process, an agile scrum process. And essentially, if you're not familiar with that, it was born out of the software development community and is an iterative process so that essentially you don't go 2 years along the road of development and then figure out that your pieces don't fit together because well, you haven't released anything, you haven't tested anything, and so forth. So this is an iterative process of development and testing. Shout out Joseph Young, he's the test lead. And this will also help us to coordinate among the different subsystems that you saw in the previous context diagram. So once we get through the development phase, we're going to pop back out of the agile and back into systems engineering and within the verification and validation phase. And then thinking through all of the newfound data and data resources that will be leveraged for not only this system, but then how can we use that data to support future initiatives. The collection I mentioned, Georgia Tech's work for collecting the enhanced pedestrian data and the new established technical channels that will be developed. Then within operations and maintenance, utilizing that connected vehicle data and so forth, and leveraging the curation plans and the open source, open platform, open data platform, portal, sorry, that will, all of this work is required to be open source. And so that's something I find extremely exciting because what that allows is for future developments by other agencies, whether they're in Georgia or anywhere in the nation, to be able to leverage this work and integrate it into themselves. And so this is actually, on a side note, if anybody's interested, the ATL Rides platform is built on the OTP OpenTrip Planner. And so it's being migrated to 2.0. I'm going too far into the details. But anyway, so that will be able to be leveraged for other applications across the nation, which I think is really cool. And then evaluation. And so we are required to evaluate the project, not only for monitoring current performance, but overall project performance as well. So with that, Maria's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Awesome. Thanks, Natalie. Obviously, Natalie is like the most excited person ever about this whole project, which I love. It's great. Someone as passionate as Roell. So I'm going to talk first a little bit about the performance measures. As Roell mentioned, this is officially a research project for USDOT, so they are pretty strict about how we are going to be evaluated and how to evaluate the program. We have all of our performance measures up here broken out. These are our complete trip performance measures. We also have performance measures for connected vehicles. And you can see that we have some very high-level categories for these. And we have several layers of performance measures under this as well. But some examples are using a lot of surveys to understand how the users are engaging with the system. Do they feel the system is easy to use? Is it making their trip safer? Do they feel safer? We are also going to be seeing if they are able to access more locations. So with all of the data we are collecting, and a lot of it is very sensitive private data, so that won't be public, of course, but we'll be able to see if our users are traveling to more varied locations after they start using the app. Based off of their previous travel, we'll have a control version before we set up the actual version. We are also going to be collecting information about their activities on the transit system itself. Are they using fixed route transit more, or are they transitioning basically from a dial-a-ride service to a fixed route service because it's easier to use the fixed route service with the app? That's one of our goals, so that's something that we're going to measure. Oh. It's not intuitive to press up or for down for next. Okay, so for the connected vehicles, we want to test if the things like an RSU alert to surrounding vehicles will actually decrease speeds at that intersection. We're going to have alerts for anyone using the application, which will be, of course, people with disabilities, but anyone will be welcome to use it when we get it deployed. So we'll have a pretty big test case, hopefully. I know that we won't have a ton of vehicles outfitted, but hey, who knows what's going to happen in 2 years? So that's one of the big ones that we want to see the information from. And to improve transit reliability in general, kind of typical TSP types of measures as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about engagement and several people on this team that we've worked with already in phase 1 and are going to work with in phase 2. One of which is the Statewide Independent Living Council of Georgia, SILC for short. We work with Jordan Hall over there, and she has been absolutely a superstar. She has already talked to all of these people that are on this list behind me and got them all super excited about the project. So we've been able to get a lot of our information about user needs, the things that Natalie was already talking through from these stakeholders that are listed. And we also are going to have a long list of training partners that we're going to use to get all of these different groups of people knowledgeable about the app, knowing how to use it on their own or with their caregiver. And it's going to be tricky, but a lot of these organizations already run training programs, either for different devices to help them get around in their daily life, or for traveling on transit, things like that. So we're going to try to utilize all of their already excellent expertise to help us both determine our training program for this application for our users, and also to then provide that training to those users. So we have a few goals in mind for participation. We are limiting all participation to anyone who is allowed to give legal consent, and that is because of the amount of data we're collecting. We won't have any option to collect data from anyone who cannot give legal consent, so that is a requirement. And we are going for a certain amount of these types of users so that we have enough data to determine whether or not the program has succeeded. And from our recruitment, we're going to use these previously listed stakeholders and training partners. They all have huge ties to their communities and all these different communities that we're looking to engage with. So they're going to help us with recruitment as well. So a little bit about the schedule and cost, and I can go through these real quick. I think I was going to give them to you, but. So phase 2 schedule is literally nuts. Technically has already started June 15th, so we're already behind, but don't worry about that. We have 24 months to do all of these things. It's gonna be fun. That's why we have so many partners, and we are going to just put our nose to the ground and get it going. But with the hybrid approach especially, There's some of these tasks that are required for USDOT aren't generally things that you would do in a hybrid way. So we are going to be finagling our hybrid approach a little bit with that. And this is the phase 3 schedule, which is where we're actually deploying it and testing it and running all of our performance measures. Our costs, I just wanted to go through a little so you understand the scope in this context as well. But we are going to have a total budget of $10 million. 7.6 of that is for phase 2, and then 2.4 of that is for phase 3. And that is an 80-20 match with USDOT. So that is going to wrap us up. And I think we have some time for questions, maybe not as much as we were supposed to. But if anyone has questions, feel free to ask. We have 2 hands up. I don't know if we're going to do mics standing around or not. Just shout.
So for the sidewalk inventory, that was
So sidewalk inventory, Randy, do you want to just come up and answer that? This is Georgia Tech's piece of the project, so I'll give you the expert.
Can you hear me? All right, I'm going to ask questions. Sidewalk inventory for the entire study area will be collected first in the laboratory using fly-throughs. We've got an agreement in the work with Bing Maps to use their imagery. Even if we don't have access to that imagery for machine learning, we still do it based on the property boundaries and the street locations. Then we go out and collect a video inventory, and we do the classification of sidewalk presence and absence, identify all of the assets that will ultimately need to be inspected. They all go into GIS. They all get their numbering system within the asset management system that we did, and then we'll go out and inspect them. And we'll have all of the features then and the characteristics that we can use for the impedance. So for example, if you're in a wheelchair and there's no ramp, we can assign a penalty to that in the calculation of the route and route you around that.
Stay up here, just in case. Matt.
Have you all gotten into the, how much does not having a ramp mean for the impedance score?
Oh, so you want the actual number for the algorithm?
That's what we get to do in phase 2. And there's really not a lot of good information in the literature on that right now as to what the appropriate impedance is. So we'll be working with the stakeholder community and making adjustments. The other thing is when we go to implementation, we'll be looking at the routes that people actually chose. So we'll be able to go back and learn from that process and change the impedance based on the elements and features that on the routes where they didn't take it. So for example, if road grade ends up and sidewalk grade ends up being really important, we'll be able to factor that in the adjusted impedance factors.
Any other questions? Go.
I may have to.
Ken, let us start.
You mentioned that your interior inventory is 2 buildings.
Yeah.
What are these buildings?
GJAC and the doorbell station.
Gwinnett Justice Administration.
You all thought about any major employers in Gwinnett County needs to partner with them that we provide for existing employees for this building, and also be able to attract additional employees.
Yeah, I think we've definitely discussed partnering with different businesses and such around Gwinnett County. I think for the purpose of choosing those 2 specific buildings was to create a route that we could frequently test on and take people through. But we are definitely open to expanding that 100%.
When will any APIs be available to access the data or just access the data?
Data access.
So yes, everything we're doing on the complete paths network, we have to be compatible and get everything onto the OpenStreetMap system. So we're going to be talking with them about how we can go about replacing some of the elements that are in there and how to tag the features in that. So the APIs will come out of all of this. Everything's going to be open source with the exception of the PII, the protected information. So everything's classified as open, completely open, proprietary, because for example, we have licensed demographic data at the household level that we can't provide you license that yourself. And then the protected information, the actual routes and origins and destinations of the participants. So open source, everything will be wide open. The dashboards will have capabilities for folks to be able to see what's going on. And I don't know what the plan is for the amount of data that you can download from the dashboard, but that's all happening in phase 2.
And the data is not going to start flowing in until phase 3, but then we will be setting up all of those systems during phase 2. So you got at least 2 years. Hopefully we get a little extension. Yeah, the sidewalk data and such, we'll be able to share those earlier.
Going back to so you're saying that the pieces were marked on GIS, and did you say that you would go out and look at them? I was just kind of curious, like long term, what that looks like maintenance and stuff.
So yeah, for this project, we'll be inspecting all of those. We'll be inspecting every bus stop, the ramps, the curb cuts, and all that. Did I hear your question?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah, how many miles? It's lots and lots. But the undergrads are really good.
Matt, to that point, so we are going to be setting up a crowdsource information piece of the app as well. So users can flag issues, and that way it'll be longer term, probably Gwinnett County employees that will go out and double check where those users had tagged issues. And then I think also temporary obstructions are going to go through, reconstruction, or just sidewalk blockage for any reason. That would go into the crowdsourced as well.
Have you considered number of crashes along the route and the impedance?
So using traffic safety as impedance value?
Yeah. The number of pedestrian incidents, the speed of vehicles, number of lanes, the distance you have to cross, all of those factors can be considered. The question is, what's the impedance associated with each? And so that's part of the research in this phase 2.
How will you measure how effectively you've met the goals of the project?
So the performance measures aspect and evaluation of this project is one of the more challenging, I would say, especially because it's hard to compare against anything else. We're going to have a short run of a control period where users will have the app, but all of the factors won't be on it yet, so they'll be able to travel with the app without all of the STCTM benefits. And then we will use that as a before and after comparison. And then a lot of this, since our project is so user-focused, we kind of have to trust our users in that we're going to be giving them like a lot of micro surveys, a couple long-form surveys. So there are going to be a lot of survey response that we are going to use for our program evaluation. And I think honestly, because this is such a user-focused project, I don't see that as a negative unless we don't get enough users. So recruitment is huge. But I think that will be a primary way for sure. Yeah, you can use it. Would you like to be recruited? Oh, Randy was just saying all of our work that we've done already for phase 1 is published and publicly available on the USDOT website. So if anyone wants to kind of dig into any details of anything we've talked about, all of the plans that we've written like 13 plans that are all, how many pages? Hundreds? 1,654 pages total across our phase 1 planning process. So have so much fun with that. Can't wait for you to read that as a bedtime story.
Are you guys going to publish your schedule on that website?
Our schedule will be published as part of the PMP document for phase 2, which we haven't written yet. But once it is written, it will be public, yes.
So with GDOT being the agency, are they going to be maintaining the app, or is ERC posting the data, or is
So the GDOT is the lead agency. Alan Davis is also, him and Kofi are both co-project managing this project. But for the app itself, the ATL Rides app that is already an existing app is currently living within the ATL, and they own and maintain that. ARC is going to be considered the developer and owner of this kind of secondary app environment that we will not end up calling ATL Rides, just to not confuse users. So ARC will own and maintain that. And we haven't worked out, in phase 2, we'll be creating some MOUs between ATL and ARC as to cost sharing or long-term ownership and maintenance. But one thing service level agreement, sorry. But one thing I did want to mention is that this program requires a 5-year maintenance period with no additional federal funding. So after that phase 3, we are going to continue doing this mandatorily, but also excitedly for 5 years, and also want to be expanding it across the region as well. Tom, is your nervous pacing mean that we should wrap it up?
No more questions. My nervous pacing is for the amount of work.
Yeah. Very true. It's coming your way, Tom. So we're going to conclude this part, but I think a number of us are able to stay for the backpacking event that's next, and then also the social as well. So please feel free to stick around. And with that, I wanted to introduce Shannon Crane, who is with Roell, and they are actually sponsoring the backpack event. So thank you, and Shannon, would you like to come and say a few things?
Here's the
Attach this anywhere.
you can hold it on it.
Laser pointer.
Yes. Do what? Pretty much. Carrie's so dumb it takes him 2 hours to watch 60 minutes. So, okay. So talk about a product fitting in great with the previous presentation. I'm here to tell you about our company, Roell. I only have 5 minutes to do this. There we go. So who is Roell? It is a company based in Japan, 10 years old, and June 1st of last year, they approached me and said, Shannon, we're looking to expand our new product into North America, and we would like for you to head that up. You can have the headquarters wherever you want it. You could hire whoever you want. So I was like, okay, that sounds good. So the headquarters here in Atlanta, in Midtown, conveniently 3 blocks from where I live, worked out that way. But our device that you can see right over here is an autonomous personal mobility device. A lot of people call it wheelchair. You can call it that. But officially, it's a mobility device. And what it allows you to do is it'll take you to your destination without you having to do anything. You don't have to use the joystick. You don't have to look around. You can take a nap. We've had people at the airport riding this take out their laptop and send out emails while this drives them to their gate. Okay. So, as I kind of mentioned already here, we're really big into what we call the last half mile of transportation. You're all familiar with the last mile. That's been the hot term for the last 5-6 years here, 8 to 9 years in Europe. But that is pretty much getting you to the front door of your destination. So, okay, I'm an elderly gentleman. I need to go to the airport. I have Uber, Lyft. I have transit. I even have a scooter if I wanted to. There's all these different ways to get to your destination. But your trip doesn't end at the front door. You still have distance to go.
For example, Salt Lake City just opened a new terminal that's literally over a mile long. So if you're 80 years old with bad knees, your trip's not done when Uber drops you off at the front door. You got a long ways left to go. So that's what we're really concentrating on. Our biggest deployment is in Haneda Airport in Tokyo. And in this past April, 2022, we had 6,000 riders in 1 month. And that's with a lot of restrictions to travel still in place there. And you can also see here, we've won a lot of awards over the years before I came on board, but we also won 2022 as well at CES in Vegas. So we're not just sitting on one product, we keep innovating it every year. Okay, so this is basically what I mentioned before. You have all these different modes. For the most part, they get you to the door, but not to your destination. That's where we come in. Okay, and we can go over this in detail after this while we're all mingling, and feel free to give it a ride. I'm going to have it running. But you can see here that it has LiDAR built in, 2 front cameras, a seat sensor that can tell if somebody's sitting on it or not. We have patented wheels for the front portion, and the device travels at 1.5 miles per hour. So that's a little slower than a person usually walks, which is about 3.25 to 3.5. But we found that since our device stops automatically, that was a little bit too much momentum carrying the person forward. So we lowered it to 1.5 miles per hour. Nobody's complained. Okay? So our device travels along. If something gets in its way, it'll stop, play some dramatic music that you'll hear. And if that person still doesn't move, it'll come on with an audio file asking them to please clear my way. So here are some of our use cases. Our biggest 2 markets are aviation and healthcare. But as the presentation before this said, you're going to need access and mobility everywhere. So it could be retail, museums, amusement parks, convention centers, government buildings, all over the place, sporting venues. Okay. So I want to show you real quick, I got about 2 minutes left, I think, some feedback data for a trial we did in San Jose, which was an interesting place to do a technology trial because everybody there in Silicon Valley has already invented something on their own. So it was like just kind of intimidating. Okay, so we got a lot of good feedback, including one from a woman who just had hip replacement surgery, and she was terrified of flying to see her family because she thought the walk in the terminal would hurt so bad that she'd be in pain the whole trip. So she was literally in tears telling us this. Had a guy that had spinal fusion surgery, somebody that hurt their ankle playing golf at a conference, just lots of variety. So here's the comments we got back from the different riders. So we had a largest chunk thought the experience was excellent, very good, good, and we had 1 not so good. And I actually interviewed the not so good. It was an elderly couple. The wife wanted the husband to try it. He said, no, if I do that, I'm officially old. I refuse to do it. And she was like, come on, you never try anything new, do it. So he finally did it. When we got to the end, I asked for his feedback. He said, I hated it, got up and walked away. He didn't want to be in a wheelchair. So we didn't throw out the bad data, it's there. But you can see, if you toss that out, everybody liked it. Okay, how safe did you feel? Very safe, somewhat safe. Nobody had anything below that. And here's some quotes that we got. For those of y'all over 35, one of them was Go Go Gadget. You youngins probably have no idea what I'm talking about. And my favorite is the one at the bottom that I had to put a blank there. If you can come up and tell me what you think that is, I'll buy you a beer. But that's the one that we hear the most, that bottom one. Every single trial we've done, we've heard that. Okay, so that's my 5 minutes, but like I said, I'll be running the device. I'll let you sit down, try it out, and like you're catching your connecting flight at the airport. So swing by and I'll be loaded. Thank you.
We do a lease format, software, maintenance, insurance.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. Great presentation. Thank you, Natalie, Kofi, Roell, and Daniel. Thank you, Free. Thank you, Legal, for sponsoring the events. If you're sticking around,
just go ahead and kind of mingle, make your way to the back. We'll do some backpack packing here, and then look forward to having a social here in a few hours. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great rest of your day.